Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting edition of Horsecast. In this episode, we are probably not going to be talking about horses at all, unless the horse in Shadow of the Colossus counts as a horse, because we're going to be talking about video games or something. Me and my good buddy Connie, we were just talking in the old Skype window box chat thing about video games and such, and eventually we just decided, fuck it, we'll do it live. So now we're doing a little Vidya podcast, but before we start talking about video games, before I get to that, I gotta get this out of the way. I just had Nutella for the first time. Have you people had Nutella? Why didn't anyone tell me how delicious Nutella was? It's kind of disgusting, but it's...
Apparently you've never been on Reddit at all.
What the hell is... What is... everything's a meme nowadays. Every time I think I've discovered something, someone turns around and goes, "Oh, well, apparently you don't know about the fucking new Grumpy Cat meme. It's making the rounds." I was into Grumpy Cats long before Grumpy Cat was a thing. My ex-girlfriend's cat was the grumpiest cat, and that was my cat. But anyways, it's fucking Nutella. I gotta describe the way it tastes, because it's like the way it tastes is like imagine like a combination of like the consistency of like human poop, but combined with like how you imagine like hummingbird food must taste like.
Hummingbird food? Don't they just eat like out of flowers?
Well, yeah, they eat nectar, but like if you buy hummingbird like a hummingbird feeder, you get like it's like this nectary like syrupy potion that you stick in there. I've never had it because I'm a human, but if I could imagine what hummingbird food would taste like and then inject that into a big kind of soft chunk of human baby diarrhea, then that's probably what Nutella would taste like, and it's fucking delicious. It sounds less delicious than it actually tastes, because it tastes quite delicious. At least it did on the first sandwich that I had. The second sandwich, not so much. I think it's one of those things like peanut butter. You eat one peanut butter sandwich, delicious. Hits the spot. Hit two, it's okay. You hit three, what the fuck have I done with my life? I'm instantly barfing. It's just like peanut butter, I assume. Only, video games. Yeah, so...
Yeah.
So, we were talking in Skype chat thing. I guess what started it is that you brought up Tomb Raider, because I brought up Tomb Raider in the video that I posted,
right?
And how much I hated the reboot, and you were saying you don't, or whatever. Because I'm a huge fan of the old Tomb Raider games and the originals from like '96. I have a lot of good memories with that one, and to me, the Tomb Raider series has always been about exploration, and discovering these like great jaw-dropping like vistas and shit, and new places and mysteries to uncover, and it just seems like the reboot just went right through the same fucking bland, mediocre meat grinder that every game has to be a fucking brown fucking shooter. They just try to turn it into Uncharted, and I said that was gay, and then you said, yeah, but it was fun, and I said, but fucking it's at odds with the story and the fucking all that fucking shit. And you said, I don't care about the story. Then we started talking about games with stories we like, and I'm just in a mood tonight. Let me tell you, I'm in a mood.
Oh no, I'm glad I'm eating, so you're giving me time to eat this snack I prepared.
I guess I'm all riled up because I just fucking watched the Royal Rumble, and it was the worst thing I've ever seen in my fucking life. 0 out of 10, but I'll get to that. I have a whole other video coming out about that. It's in editing right now, and I'll get that shit out someday, but fuck that. We're not talking about wrestling. So, wait, what the fuck? Okay, so, we were talking about...
You're like, wait, let me make sure we're not talking about wrestling, right?
So, I always have to double check if I'm talking about wrestling or not, because sometimes I forget and it bleeds into everything I do, literally.
I think the core of what we're discussing here has to do with, you saw my video about why and how I play video games, right?
Yeah.
And it sort of comes down to that distinction where I was telling Jesse I don't care about the narrative in games for the most part. Like, there's games that have narratives that I like, but when I start playing a game, I'm not expecting anything from the narrative. I'm probably not going to care about it. And the difference here was that he was saying, oh, the narrative is that ends with the gameplay, and I said, yeah, I skipped all the cutscenes because I'd seen little bits of my friends playing it.
Because my big thing that bothered me about Tomb Raider is that it really does, it completely conflicts with the gameplay and the story, because the story is all, Laura's getting beaten up, she's fucking dirty, she's crying, she's like, I don't know if I can do this, it's so hard, you can do this, Laura, believe in yourself, and it's all like this coming of age, like she's learning to be tough, and she's kind of weak at the beginning. But in the actual gameplay, you're fucking gunning down 20,000 heavily armed mercenaries like fucking Nathan Drake, and they could have literally just slapped Nathan Drake on it and called it Uncharted 4, and it would have been the same game. And it's like, which way do you want to go? You can't have it both ways, and that's why I didn't like it, but yeah.
Right. And that's perfectly understandable, but again, we come to games for different reasons.
Yeah.
You care a lot more about the emotions of games, as you've mentioned before.
And you're one of those guys who cares more about the mechanics and everything and the gameplay.
Right.
Which my buddy Aiden is just like that from the Examined Life of Gaming.
Yeah, although the big difference between me and Aiden, because I do subscribe him and watch his videos, is that for him, he's very particular about like how the mechanics work. It's almost the way I feel when I watch his videos. It's almost like it's not about whether or not the mechanics appeal to him. It's about whether or not they are like perfect, or whether or not they make perfect sense.
I've actually had that exact argument with him before, because I said, Aiden, games are supposed to be fun, and he shoots back, no, they're not. They're supposed to be interesting.
Right. He really cares about... It's not even like he cares about executing the mechanics. Like, it's not about what do the mechanics make me feel. It's do they make sense. Because in, his whole complaint where he was saying that Grand Theft Auto 4, what made it interesting to him was that you suck at driving at first, but you have to work for it to get better at it. Whereas in GTA 5, you're just amazing at driving from the beginning. And it was funny because I've never heard anyone praise the driving in GTA 4 before that moment. Ever. It's been out for 6 years, and even people who gave that game 10 out of 10 still complained about the driving. So I was like, wow. But it wasn't about whether or not it was fun to drive. It was about whether or not the mechanic made sense to him. And he goes on and on about stuff like that in his videos. He's the only
person I've ever seen who completely is behind GTA 4 being a better game than GTA 5. And the more people call him out on it, the more assured of it he becomes, and it's great.
Right. What I love about his video on third-person shooters, right? He takes down Spec Ops: The Line because he said it was boring because it's very easy, and that was the biggest criticism that game faced, is that even though the narrative was really interesting, it had this great like commentary on video games kind of thing, which game critics eat up because they all fucking hate modern shooters anyway. So it's like the game was practically written for game critics to fucking jack off to. But in any case, it's a cover-based shooter. Ooh, that's very simple. And Aiden had said at one point when I first talked to him in a call with you, I said I like cover-based shooters because I'm good at them, right? And I said I know they're not like particularly hard to grasp. And he said, yeah, you're good at them because they're designed for you to be good at them. Like they're easy. They're purposely designed so that even on the highest difficulty, because I played through.
They're sort of like the Michael Bay movies of games. I mean, they have to appeal to everyone, like the common denominator.
Right, and because I played through Uncharted on the highest difficulty, the first game, right? And a lot of people had considered that game very difficult, but the reason I was able to master it is because it was all about pattern recognition. It's just a simple matter of figure out where the enemies are, and then you'll be able to do it. Because you'd replay, the enemies have super ridiculous fucking sight, and they'll just gun you down immediately, right? So it's all about figuring out where each of them is, figuring out where you need to be hiding to avoid their bullets, and then the system, like the order that you should kill them in. And so it's basically like practicing a routine. You keep doing the same gunfight over and over again, and it's always going to play out the same exact way. The enemies are going to come from the same locations, they're going to stand in the same spots. There's not like a lot of AI in Uncharted that would make them, change their tactics. If you're sitting behind a piece of cover and you've got enemies in two places that are trying to shoot at you, they're never going to move. They're never going to go find a better place to shoot at you unless they're coming straight at you. And even then, you're just going to mow them down because you're like, why would you come straight at me? I have a shotgun. So even on the highest difficulty, it's just a memorization game, and that's why it was something I could master and just do, because it wasn't really about twitch reflexes. It was just about playing through it so many times that you got it. And I enjoy that because I don't really care about the mechanics being perfect. I care about feeling like I'm good at it. That's what made it fun for me, was I felt like, oh man, I mastered this challenge. But it wasn't a matter of the challenge actually being interesting. I mean, definitely, or complex.
Like, not every game has to have like a huge, deep, meaningful story that like tugs the heartstrings or whatever. But I mean, I can have fun just with the mechanics of a game, like anyone. I love Bust a Move. I love Crazy Taxi. But it's interesting how exactly what you were saying in your Why I Play Video Games video, how people play games for different reasons, and it's very important to understand that before you just blindly follow some 10 out of 10 score.
Right.
Or try to find, like, an objective review. Because I grew up, I mean, like, the first game I ever played in my life was Lion King. And that's that's the best game ever.
It's like the hardest fucking game of all time.
Oh, please. I could ace that. I was doing pretty shitty at it in the video because I was fucking wasty pants, but I can beat it. I'm pretty good at Lion King after all these years. So that game doesn't... obviously, that game doesn't have a fucking huge story because it's a movie license game. But after that, when I got a little over it, I was like... I think I was 8 years old when Final Fantasy VII came out. And that was the game that showed me, like... So, people talk nowadays about how, oh, games can be art and games can have meaningful stories. But I had that shit figured out in Final Fantasy VII in '97 when I played that shit, and I was like, wow, this game is really doing something special. And so ever since then I've come at games from a standpoint of, okay, how is this game gonna tug on my heartstrings or activate my brain region? I'm already drinking my brain region. But yeah, so I put a lot of thought into how games connect emotionally and with the player and how the story is and whether it's shit or terrible. It's the difference.
So did you care about the story in the old Tomb Raider game?
The original Tomb Raider is not a game that I would say has like a really huge in-depth story. I mean, it's cool that like you discover Atlantis and you go to all these different places. Like that's a cool setup. It's not like obviously it's not a big cool story, but what makes it almost just as good of a story for me, because like when I say story, I'm not just talking about like the script and like the plot and everything. I'm talking about like other like emotional factors too, like because like it's like moments like in Tomb Raider 1, you know, it's got these unforgettable
it's what I called
moments.
It's what I referred to as relatedness in my video, where I said it's not just about the because Yahtzee called it context, where he was like, you know, it's about feeling that you're in this world or like having some kind of context within the game that makes you relate to it.
I'll tell you what to me is so genius about the first Tomb Raider is that, like, sure, you could have like a cutscene where like Laura is like, okay, I'm gonna explore this place. Oh my god, this is happening, and you could relay it all with like a cutscene and like dialogue and everything. But that's movies. I mean, I like it when video games do story in ways that only video games can.
Right.
And it's like Tomb Raider, the first Tomb Raider, it has like a first little intro cutscene where she's fighting wolves or whatever, and it starts, and it just drops you into this world, and there's no music at all, and you play like the first two levels, and you get a feel for the game and what to do, and then you get to the third level, and you're in a cave just like the first two levels, and all of a sudden you go over this ridge, and it opens up, and you're in this wide area. And all of a sudden, you're running, and this music starts, and you're like, what the fuck is that music? And it's like this exciting, scary music. All of a sudden, after all this time of having no music, and then a fucking T-Rex comes around the corner, and you ain't seen that shit. So, you could have a cutscene where you're like, okay, here's the cutscene where Laura goes and meets a T-Rex. But the fact is, like, you're playing the game, and the story is, you walked into this fucking place, it opened up, and a fucking dinosaur came out of fucking nowhere. You weren't expecting that, and that is part of the story for me. It's not just what they convey in the cutscenes, it's what they convey in the gameplay as well. And I'll never forget that moment, and moments like it.
Yeah, I definitely... The thing is, I actually agree with you fully, but the reasons I liked... Because Tomb Raider 2013, I think, is a very deeply, deeply flawed game, but it's kind of like a... Let's say, if I had a pound of shit, I would have Bioshock Infinite, right? So, Bioshock Infinite would be 1 pound of shit. And then if I had let's say The Last of Us, which you don't like the storyline at all in that game, and I think the mechanics are kind of flawed. So overall, let's say if I have The Last of Us, I have about 4 ounces of gold, and I've got 4 ounces of shit. I've only got 8 ounces total. I've got half a pound. It's 4 ounces of gold, 4 ounces of shit. And then if I had Tomb Raider 2013, I've got like 8 ounces of gold and 4 ounces of shit. So there's a lot of shit, but overall, there's so much gold that it's still better than The Last of Us or Bioshock Infinite. I don't know why I had to come up with this extended shit metaphor to explain that.
One thing that I can say about the Tomb Raider reboot is it's Square Enix, and if there's one thing that Square Enix does well, and there is one thing only at this point anymore, and it's presentation. And like I will say that when the game first started and you walk across that ridge and the logo pops up on the screen with the shipwreck in the background, that's a really cool moment. And that's what Square Enix does well, is presentation.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't develop the game. It's, what is it, like Eidos or something?
Never mind, I'm completely full of shit. Yeah, they published it.
I mean, they do usually publish games that kind of fall in with, like, their style, though. You know, they're gonna pick games that are, like, beautiful graphics. Because, I mean,
if you play Final Fantasy 13, worst game ever made, bar none, but it does have good presentation, at least.
Right. The thing about Tomb Raider for me is that I had seen a little bit of friends playing it, and I quickly caught on that the cutscenes were awful, right? Because the voice acting alone is enough for me to not want to watch them because it was so bad. And the storyline was trite and it was dumb. It was funny because my brother actually liked the cutscenes a lot because he liked the whole idea. He liked the idea of what the plot is suggesting. He didn't care about the mechanics not really, working with it. He liked the idea of this journey where she becomes, like, a fully fledged person, even though him, like all my other friends, kept complaining about the characters. And it was funny because of how different the dialogue was about the game between us, because when Victor and my friend would talk about it, they'd bitch about the characters. And when I talked about it, I was like, what characters? I don't know who you're talking about. Because I skipped every cutscene in the game, like, without fail. I skipped them all, except for this one, where this one dude's fucking, like, about to get blown up in a submarine or something like that, and the loading time, it was, like, loading the entire fucking next level during the cutscene, and I'm sitting there, like, mashing on start, like, why won't it go away? But, other than that, for me, I was playing through the game because, first of all, again, I like cover-based shooters, so that part of it was fun for me. And then it was just that the game is open world, and it's funny because it doesn't suggest that to you. It kind of just, it lets you play through, and there's all these sections where it's like these little, like, oh, now you have to have Lara Croft running towards the camera, and she has to jump over these things. And I'm like, oh my fucking god, I hate those, the scripted sequences. Those pissed me off the whole game. Yeah. And there's a lot of them, like way more than is normal. Because people bitch about scripted sequences all the time, but I've never played that many in one game before, so I was getting pissed at those. But then, when the cutscenes were over, the scripted sequences are over, and you've killed all the bad guys, and then you go back through an area, and all the bad guys stay dead in the game. So you can go back through the entire game. You can teleport between all the campfires, you can run back, and there's shitloads of hidden stuff. Like, every nook and cranny has a hidden thing. In fact, there's even secret objectives, like secret checklists that you can have, because if you open your start menu, it gives you checklists of all the items. It'll be like, here's all the GPS trackers that you found in this area, here's all the treasures you found in this area out of 5 or whatever, and then there'll be a secret objective. So, like, let's say you're at the beach level, which I spent like hours just at this one beach place because it was really big. One of the objectives you can get is called Minesweeper, and you only find it out if you blow up one of the mines on the beach. And it turns out that there's 10 hidden mines. These things are well hidden. I explored for a fucking hour, and I got like 8. I don't even think I got all the mines, because I was trying to find them and I couldn't. But I just was running through this area continuously forever. And then there was, in that one area, 2 secret caves. And I find these caves, which they've no objective, like there's no reason to go there, except for that you're going to get a bunch of extra points, which is going to let you upgrade your weapons. So there is a purpose to do it, but it's not required at all. And you find these caves, and they're pretty well hidden, and you go inside, and it'll be like this whole elaborate puzzle in there that you have to solve. And those puzzles were often more interesting than the ones you had to actually do through the regular game. So it's kind of like Tomb Raider 2013 to me was this really, really amazing adventure game that was wrapped up in all this modern bullshit that didn't need to be there. They didn't, like, I was fine with the combat system, because, I mean, what is the combat system replacing? Like, the last Tomb Raider games before that were, you literally run forward with 2 pistols and shoot at shit, and I hate the combat in those games. So
yeah, but at least then it was never the focus back then.
Right, but if you took out all the bullshit story, if you took out all the scripted sequences from this game, if you took out all the shit that made it so overpriced to make that selling 6 million copies still made them have a deficit, if you take out all that bullshit, you have a really amazing game. And I think that too many people, because, game reviewers, this game was pretty divisive. Like, there was a lot of reviewers that thought it was one of the best of the year. A lot of them thought it was derivative bullshit because they saw it as just another Brown game. But if you sat there and, like, went back, like, if you took a step back and said, I'm going to explore everything, then you slowly realize, because I didn't realize how much was in the game until I was like later in. I was like 3/4 of the way. It was at that beach place, and that's when I found out about the secret objectives, and I went, holy shit, because in the process of trying to solve one of them, in the place right after the beach, there's like these 4 banners that you have to burn, and I was going around fucking forever trying to find this 4th banner that I couldn't find. It was really difficult to find even the other 3, and then like I looked up a guide, and it's like, oh yeah, well what you should have done was look up at this radio tower, and if you look up at the top of it, there's a flag there, so you have to literally scope out the environment perfectly. Now mind you, I say all this, but I completely forgot. Every time I talk about this game, I forget this until someone brings it up. That there is a, what is it called? Like hunter mode or something like that? Like you press a button and it shows you what to do. And I think there's actually an ability to turn it off. And I had it off the whole time I was playing. So I never used it. But it's funny because people will say, like, oh, well, if you wanted to find all the secret shit, you should have just been using that. And I was like, why? Why would you do that? That completely defeats the purpose. Like, the whole reason to explore and do everything is because it's fun. And that moment when I looked up at that radio tower, and I had not thought to look up there. You know, I just hadn't thought to look up. Because who does that? What game requires you to look up to find something at the top of a radio tower? But then it opened up my mind to where I'm like, fuck.
In a game where they put that shit where like that press X to win, I'll put a big red arrow right to where you need to look. That makes you not feel like fucking exploring at all.
Right.
And it's such a shame when like a game has good ideas or a lot of really good like thought and care. They really cared about putting all this stuff into it, but then it just falls victim to just needing to be the same fucking gameplay as everything else just to make back the $10 billion they spent on marketing on fucking Tomb Raider. Who doesn't know what Tomb Raider is? I can't
get over the fact that 6 million copies, which I'm pretty sure is it's like 5.5, 6, somewhere in that range, is a shitload of copies.
Yeah.
That game sold as well as like the best-selling GameCube games, you know, like or any. It's in the top probably 20 or so of fucking games sold. Because I keep track of these things, like, recently. Because you'll see all these numbers come up, and people will say, oh, this game sold, like, 1 million copies in the first 3 days. And it's like, well, what does that actually mean? Because we don't really know, unless you're actually looking up how much a game sells. And making 1 million copies is a lot. Like, even 1 million is pretty fucking good. Dark Souls, the Dark Souls series, or the Souls series, Demon Souls, sold 500,000 copies and was considered like a crazy success. Because the game was cheap. It was cheaply made.
Because they didn't fuck around and waste money.
Right, because From Software has been they've been around forever. They've been around since the early 90s, or late 90s. They were on the PS1 and PS2, I think, with Armored Core. Yeah. And, you know, the Armored Core series was never a big deal, but every single one of those games did well enough that they kept bringing them here, you know? Like, even though they were these low-budget games that didn't sell that well in Japan, they still sold well enough to be brought to America, and continually, like, they didn't really bring a lot of the Kingsfield games, which is a real like the precursors to the Demon Souls series.
Kingsfield 1
same company
came over here.
Yeah, there's one, but there's a lot of them in Japan. There's Kingsfield, there's something else, I think, another dungeon crawler game. But Demon Souls was such a surprise hit at 500,000. Did I say 50,000 earlier? I meant 500,000. At 500,000 copies, 500,000. It was a huge hit. It spawned a sequel, Dark Souls, which is clearly higher budget. The graphical quality is way better across the whole game. That game sold 2.4 million copies and was like a crazy success. Huge cult hit. They immediately greenlight Dark Souls 2, you know, and put way more budget into that as well. It's like...
And it's almost better for it. I mean, like, the game itself is almost better for it because... When fucking Demon Souls first came out, and anyone who bought that shit, not only was it a great game, but it made you feel like, yeah, I've discovered something that no one else knows about. Ooh.
Definitely, because I knew about it because one of my best friends he's just a hardcore, like he likes the really difficult games, you know, anything that pushes his twitch reflex to the max. And so, you know, he knew about Demon Souls before it came out here, and in Japan it was kind of cult too, you know, it wasn't even big there, it was just a cult game no matter where it was, but, you know, he found out about it and was like, oh, I can't wait for them to bring this to America. I mean, it was brought over by fucking Atlas, who are, you know, they're a... Yeah, they're great, but everything they bring over is like, really... They make the Shin Megami Tensei games, and then they license like all the Nippon Ichi games and stuff like that. They bring over the most obscure shit that gets brought to America, and they brought Demon Souls. And this game, completely put them on the map. Like, or, not on the map, because Persona 4 did pretty well, but like, Demon Souls helped them achieve much higher sales that year than they were anticipating.
I would say that Atlus right now is where Squaresoft was in the late 90s. Like, just the RPG company. Or the Eastern company, even.
Well, because they're the one that's left, because it was
they're the only one left.
It was Square, Enix, and Atlus were the three, because the big three in Japan was the Final Fantasy series, the Persona series, and the Dragon's Quest series. All three of them equally were a big deal over there. And then Final Fantasy caught on here, and Dragon's Quest kind of went by the wayside in the US. So Final Fantasy had so much Western success that it carried over and made Squaresoft huge, whereas Enix kept having all these games that were like these little cult hits, so they get bought out by Square, and none of the Enix titles except Dragon Quest have survived. There's been no successor to Terranigma and Soul Blazer or any of that shit. I don't think there's been another. What's that other game? The Chrono Trigger. There's not been or that was Square though. Never mind. Either way, Enix is not. They're just dissolved into Squaresoft. It might as well. Are they even called Square Enix anymore?
They're still called Square Enix, but just they make nothing but shit. I mean, maybe Kingdom Hearts 3 will be good, and the demo for Lightning Returns I played was, I don't know, the gameplay was decent, but for the most part, fuck them. They're just shit.
Yeah, and everyone needs to remember that they also there's the Square Enix, the developer, and all they've made is shit, and then there's Square Enix, the publisher, and they've done great stuff.
Because publishers can do whatever,
right?
Because they just put their name on it. I mean, they've done all the Eidos games, Human Revolution, and Tomb Raider, and whatever.
And then they did
they're almost at the
Sleeping
point now,
Dogs.
Yeah, they're
everyone
now where
likes
they're better
Sleeping
as a
Dogs
publisher than they are as a developer anymore.
Definitely, like a lot of people have forgiven them for that, but then they also do shit like. Have you heard of Final Fantasy All the Bravest?
No.
Oh god, it's an iPhone game, an app game.
Jesus Christ.
And it's literally like, okay, it's if you picture like Final Fantasy 1, how it'll have like the four enemies on the left and then the four guys on the right. But in this game, instead of 4 guys on the right, there's like 20 guys on the right in the same rows, like fashion of rows. And literally, you just swipe your finger over them and it makes them attack the enemies. So the whole game is just you swiping your finger back and forth, right? From what I understand, the game itself is free, but you like buy heroes, like your favorite Final Fantasy characters for this game. So it's like a DLC game that's about literally wagging your finger across the screen back and forth.
No. The thing I don't get is just like their just refusal to just let go of Final Fantasy 13. It's a fucking failure. Let it go, guys. You dropped the ball. You made a bad game that nobody liked. It cannot be salvaged. The story of Final Fantasy 13 in the world is so convoluted and ridiculous and makes no sense that you cannot fix it with sequels. It's just going to get more and more convoluted and worse. And they keep saying, oh, okay, we messed up, we made a bad game, none of you liked it. Well, how about if we do it 2 more times and make more
the
Final
funny
Fantasy
thing
13?
The funny thing is that you say that, but even though Final Fantasy 13 had this horrible critical reception supposedly, it also has this massive like following where if you ever venture, and I don't recommend doing this because every time I've ever gone into the Game FAQs forums, I've regretted everything. Because I'll go to Game FAQs because I do the poll of the day every day because I don't know why, it's just like something I do. And then I'll look down and there'll always be like a list of the top forum threads right now. And if you click on any of them, no matter how interesting the title sounds, you are going to be disappointed in humanity because it's going to be the worst thing you've ever seen. But for years, there was people arguing about Final Fantasy 13 because there's a set of people who think it's like the best Final Fantasy. They really care about the characters and like really think they're these amazing, interesting characters.
How do you care about these cardboard cutouts?
I mean, know.
They're well designed from a design standpoint. They're okay.
The reason that third game is called Lightning Returns is because Lightning is such a popular character that she could get a game out of it. And mind you, in Japan, this game, I don't know how it's received totally. I think it's probably divisive there too. But when this game first came out, the Japanese magazine Famitsu, which is sort of they're like the GameSpot of Japan in terms of like their influence, and that they used to be considered like somewhat harsh with their ratings, not so much anymore. They gave Final Fantasy 13 like a perfect score. Like this game, there were some critics who really, and this, mind you, they gave it a perfect score, and Famitsu is a team of 4 reviewers. They have 4 people play the game, each of them gives their own score, and it totals up their score. So the highest score you get is 40, because it's out of 10 out of 10s. 4 reviewers from this magazine gave Final Fantasy 13 a 10 out of 10. Were they paid off? Probably, but the point is that it happened, and, you know, it's one of those moments where...
I mean, I shouldn't say it's insane, because... we see the same thing over here. People give 10 out of 10s to games that objectively, there's no way they deserve those scores.
Reviewers are paid off, and it's embarrassing. Absolutely. It really is. Like, because Game Informer has always been
not
bad
only
about
paid
it.
off, but just on a general level, incompetent all across the board, and stupid and insecure about what they do, and desperate to fucking God, I don't even want to get into that.
If you've ever read Game Informer, then to me that magazine, it cracks me up, because I used to read it when I was big into video games as a kid. When I was like 15 was when I first like really I've been playing video games since I was like 7 or 8, but when I was 14 or 15 I got really into them. I was doing lots of research. I learned like the whole history of video games and everything, probably because that's around when G4 was like becoming big and hip and I had it on my TV. But I had Game Informer magazines, and I'd read them, and I'd specifically read the reviews because I've been obsessed with reviews my whole life. And I started to catch on that you can't really trust them, because the fucking magazine is owned by GameStop.
Yeah.
They're not going to sit there and tell you that this AAA game that they're going to have to be peddling all year is a piece of shit. So you can almost gauge how shitty a AAA game is, because if they give it a 9.25, that's like their IGN 7.
Yeah.
You know, it's like 9 or 9.25.
Like reviews, it's dying, and they know it's dying, and they're desperate. But good, it should, because the independent guys, the Angry Joes, are doing their jobs so much better and more professionally than they are.
Right.
And that's what needs to happen, is people need to put their trust in YouTube personalities, that independent guys that they know they can trust, that they can see what they like from a subjective standpoint and see, okay, it matches up with my opinions. Or it matches up with what I value in a game.
It was a sad day for me when I found out what happened with GameSpot, because... like I said, I've been obsessed with reviews forever, and GameSpot had fascinated me for years growing up because of the fact that they had never given a 10 before. They were on one of those, you know, like 100-point rating systems where they give like 9.5 and stuff like that. And the highest rated game that they'd ever done was Metroid Prime with a 9.7, and that was like early into the site's history. They had given the 2 Halo games like 9.5-ish. Those were like the highest scores they'd ever given.
And I love that. I love like a reviewer who just won't give anything a 10, it seems like.
I hate that, because for me, like, I don't like that aspect of them.
Eventually they will, and when they do, you know it means something. Cause
you hope. Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between that. Like, there are some reviewers who literally don't give 10s, like one of my because they say no game is perfect, so I'm not going to give a 10.
Well, one of my favorite
but the 10 should be the apex.
Was Tommy Tallarico from he had a show on G4 back when G4 was actually a channel worth watching in the early days.
I remember this.
Him and Victor Lucas, and Tommy. They went a couple seasons, and Tommy never gave anything a 10. And then, finally, the first game he ever gave a 10 was Prince of Persia. And it seemed like such a big deal that he liked it that much. I immediately went out and bought it, and that game was fantastic, and I wouldn't have bought it otherwise.
Right. There's definitely a value to that. Like, my favorite... this same exact story, pretty much. My favorite internet music personality is this guy Anthony Fantano. He runs a channel called The Needle Drop. He's only ever given 110 on his channel. It was to Death Grips The Money Store, which I now own on vinyl, and I think it's a fantastic album. I got into Death Grips solely on the fact that I was so amazed that I kept looking through this guy's history, like looking at all of his reviews, and you know, and trying to find, like, because he barely ever even gives 9s. Like, he only gives 9s to the top tier shit, you know. So out of like 4 years of doing like 5 reviews a week on his own. This guy's given 110. Now, mind you, he does a classics week every year where he'll talk about 5 albums that are old, and he says that pretty much any classic is a 10 out of 10 because that's the whole reason they're classics to him. But that just means how intense, not only how intense those classics are, but how difficult it is for new music to actually achieve that status with him, where it has to be like, he has to listen to it and it has to immediately just ingrain itself into his consciousness as something just,
I do get
wow, this is 10-worthy.
Occasionally, because he seems like his tastes are a little bit more hipstery than mine, or not even hipstery. He dumps on my favorite bands a lot, and it just gives me nerd rage.
He does the same. I mean, he doesn't like any, like, most of my favorite albums, when I go back and look, he won't have liked. Now, mind you, I often like stuff that he gives good scores to, but at the same time, like, the difference between our taste pretty much is that he wants an album to be like all one thing. I've noticed, like, he likes albums that are focused,
he always
that have like a
complains about
specific,
inconsistency.
right? And I like albums that are kind of all over the place. Like, a lot of my favorite stuff is really eclectic and everywhere. So, yeah, that's like the biggest difference between, I think, my taste and his. But leaving Fantano aside, since he's a music guy, the disappointment I felt was because I'd been keeping track of GameSpot scores for years. I didn't even read the reviews. I just thought the scores were fascinating because they'd never given a 10, and that, 9.0 meant editor's choice. And if you got 9.0, it meant that was a great fucking game, And there's one time where they suddenly gave their first 2 10s in a row on, like, the same day. And it was Grand Theft Auto 4 and Metal Gear Solid 4, because they both came out at exactly the same time. Both got perfect 10s. And to me, in that moment, I thought, this is a gaming renaissance. We must be at the apex, because it was like the PS3 was fairly new. These were 2 games that were both known for being insanely huge, right? In Metal Gear Solid 4's case, it was just the density of things you could do in the game, where there's like cutscenes where you can control a remote camera and like watch the cutscene from different angles. There's like all this crazy shit, and I was like, whoa. And the game was like 55 fucking gigs because they didn't compress anything because they had space on Blu-ray, so they like, it was just interesting little factoids about the game. And then Grand Theft Auto 4 was this big, huge game. And they both got 10s. And then I found out shortly thereafter that they had changed their rating system. They no longer didn't give 10s, because instead of using a 100-point system, they now used a 40-point system, where it was like, 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, 10. So they were giving out 10s because they had changed their rating system. And then I quickly realized that they changed their rating system because they sold out. And there was this big famous incident where this guy wrote a shitty review of Kane and Lynch 2, but Kane and Lynch 2 had been like advertising on GameSpot, like there was ads for the game everywhere, and they had been told not to write a shitty review of it. So this guy gets fired because he wrote an honest review of Kane and Lynch, giving it like a 5 out of 10. And after that, like, they lost all credibility. No one takes GameSpot seriously anymore.
It's embarrassing. It really is. Like, I mean, these people always want to get on their high horses and feel like they're such smart, intellectual people by saying that, like, oh, this fucking sexuality in games, this is sexism, it's embarrassing for the medium. But if you want to talk about what's really embarrassing for the medium and for the people who play games, it's the lack of professionalism in the journalism part of the whole medium. That's what's embarrassing. Not any construed, perceived, phony fucking sexism that someone on Tumblr fucking drew up to just, look at that hurts my feelings, boo, fuck you.
I mean, I don't disagree that there are sexist games, but at the same time...
Oh, there are, and I can name one for sure.
Which one?
DMC. Devil May Cry.
Oh, God.
The one game that conspicuously nobody called sexism on. Gee, wonder why. Could it be because they were butthurt about the fact that all the gamers hated it and the journalists wanted to do whatever they can to clickbait and be on the other side and be as contrarian as possible and defend something that everyone hated? So they were all, no, this game is great. You just don't like it because Dante's hair. Neglecting all of the real, very valid points people had about the idiotic story, the idiotic writing, the fucking grade school, fucking 4th graders writing, and the terrible gameplay. It was a terrible game in every fucking way, but they just wanted to boil all that down to, you just don't like the hair, so they could be as contrarian as possible and defend something that everyone hated for their stupid clickbait headlines, anything they can do to kick the hornet's nest and piss off gamers and tell us that we're too stupid, that they're smarter than us, and that they're more cultured than us. So, anything we like is sexist. Anything that the majority of gamers like, well, that's sexist. But is DMC sexist? Did anyone cry sexist when in DMC there's a cutscene where Virgil fucking shoots a pregnant lady in the stomach with a sniper rifle? How come that's not considered sexist? Oh, I guess it's not. Oh, everyone said of DMC, all the fucking professional reviews all said the same thing. This game is so mature. It has such great mature storytelling, such a great story. Suck my fucking dick. It has the worst written story this side of Final Fantasy 13. Fuck DMC. Fuck game journalists. It's all a big fucking circle jerk, and it makes me sick to my goddamn stomach. If you want to point your finger and call any game released in the last 10 years sexist, any game, you point your fucking finger at DMC, or you don't point your fucking finger at anything, because that is, and you know me, I wouldn't call anything sexist if it wasn't sexist. I don't believe in this fucking misogyny bullshit. I hate Tumblr scum more than anything. I hate feminism more than anything. So for me to call something sexist, it has to really be blatantly fucking sexist, and DMC is the one fucking game that I can say, yeah, that's fucking sexist. But nobody called it out on that. Nobody. High scores all around.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked myself that happened, specifically because so many reviews pretend to care about narrative. That was all that bothered. Like, even if DMC really is, like, because I've never played it, but I've watched other people play it. The dialogue is the absolute worst dialogue I've ever seen in anything in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even... That's not even an overstatement. It's not even hyperbole. It is the worst dialogue I've ever seen. And, like, I watched my brother play part of it, and it was like... I was looking at it, and I thought, some of the gameplay stuff is kind of creative. There's, like, parts where, like, you're being viewed on security cameras, and the controls change a little bit, and, like, the color palette's really good, the game looks nice. But I was like, if I played DMC... There's no question I'd skip every cutscene, right? No question. I would turn off the sound. I hate the fucking stupid dubstep music and all that other bullshit that's in the game. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate dubstep music. I just hate it in that game because it's all generic fucking heavy music to use in the fights.
The old Devil May Cry games, Dante was like this. He was a unique protagonist. He was unique, and that's what made him popular. In a medium where everyone's always brooding and dark and gritty, Dante was flashy, and that's what people liked about the character. And if you look at the fucking games themselves, Devil May Cry 1 and 3, they had atmosphere, and, Devil May Cry 1 was kind of a horror game. It had atmosphere, and Devil May Cry 3...
It was supposed to be Resident Evil 3, so...
Yeah, and DMC 3... Devil May Cry 3 went more action route, but it still had atmosphere. It knew what it was trying to be. And the gameplay in Devil May Cry 3 was so complex, and there was so much you could do with it, and it was so hard to master and get good at, and so rewarding. Right. And it was hard, and it was, and even so to this day, people play it and say it's one of the top 10 action games of all time. And that's why people like the series, and that's why people were mad about DMC, because DMC, the reboot, was just fucking baby's first action game. They took it down to like two buttons, two different styles of attacks, like light and heavy, and it's fucking easy, and the character of Dante is just a fucking generic little turd. And it's embarrassing that so many people would defend that game when it's
like
objectively
I said,
so much worse than the
even if the gameplay was perfect, the fact that the same critics who go on about how much they love narrative in games would turn around and praise DMC, which has one of the worst narratives I've ever seen, and it really does strike me as trying to be contrarian. I really feel, and even when they don't, I don't think it was. I think for a lot of them, it was not conscious. Maybe it was not on purpose. Like, maybe they didn't. They probably didn't sit there.
They don't even realize their own hypocrisy.
Right. But, like, I could totally see a reviewer sitting down and, he's not thinking, oh, everyone likes this game, or everyone hates this game, I'm going to write a positive review just to fuck with people. I can see, however, a reviewer going, all right, everyone hates this game for a stupid reason that I don't care about. Like, they changed Dante's character. I didn't like Dante to begin with, so I don't care about that. So I'm going to come at it from the perspective of, I know there's probably good in this game because everyone's hating it for stupid reasons, so let's find out what that is.
But that shows such a lack of research and a lack of professionalism about what people really didn't like about it.
Right, and the idea that, like, even if you... It's like coming at it from an angle of, well, everyone hates it for the wrong reasons, so I'm going to promote it. But it's like, even if you had the right reasons, it's still bad. There is no good reason. There is no good part. And when I see someone like fucking, like, Adam Sessler, who I watched his video on it, and I remember he loved the game, and I was like, you talked endlessly in BioShock Infinite about how much narrative matters and how much it touched you, and then you gave fucking Devil May Cry a great review.
Adam Sessler, what happened to that man? I mean, the just widespread laziness and incompetence and hypocrisy. It's like a trifecta of 3 horrible fucking traits. It's just widespread in games journalism. And fucking Adam Sessler breaks my heart because he used to be someone who mattered to me. When fucking X-Play was on the air, he was a funny guy. You know, you didn't always agree with his opinions, but he was a real gamer, it seemed like, you know? And it seemed like you could trust him to say something that was really him. But now it's like, I mean, the newest God of War game that came out. There's a scene where one of the boss characters is female. Oh, God forbid, one of the enemies is female that you might have to kill. He called it a gut punch of misogyny, and he railed against it, and he took points off the game for it. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I remember about 4 years ago, he gave God of War 3 5 out of 5. A game, God of War 3 is a game, if no one remembers, by the way, a game where you take an innocent girl, tie her up to a device holding a door open, and break her fucking spine in half. And when I was playing that game, I remember it vividly. I was playing God of War 3, and that's the point in the game where I lost interest in the series, and I lost the desire to root for Kratos as a character, because that, to me, was a gut punch of misogyny 4 years ago. How come Adam Sessler didn't care about it then? How come he cares about that kind of thing now? Because it's popular to care about that kind of thing now. Right. Fucking jumping on a bandwagon, motherfucker. I used to respect that man. Not anymore. Fuck him.
Yeah, I mean,
in God of War 3, you literally take an innocent teenage girl and you break her spine. You have to in order to proceed in the game, and that's totally fine. But in the new game, one of the bosses has tits, and that's bad? Fuck you. Get your shit straight. Be consistent with your bullshit at least.
Right. I think it's so weird, like, exactly what gets called out as, like, misogynistic and stuff like that, because, like, it's oftentimes the, like, sexy characters, and they're like, oh, well, it's sexualizing women, and that's bad. And I'm like, well, that's not what the problem isn't that we sexualize women in games. The problem is that we do it too much and there's not enough alternative, right? The problem is there's not enough women who aren't these, ridiculous sexy caricatures. But
honestly, go ahead.
I don't think there's anything wrong with having sexy characters. There's nothing wrong with it, right? Because some people are sexy. Some women like to portray themselves as sexy. Some, men are, oogling it. But the implication that just because a man finds a woman attractive and, like, that's the main thing that he cares about doesn't necessarily mean he's objectifying the woman, because unless he is, it's like suggesting that the whole suggestion that everyone who likes this one thing must be the same. Well, that guy objectifies women and he likes the sexy characters, but it's like, that doesn't stand for everyone who likes the sexy characters.
I think it's a very small minority. I am not convinced, nor will I ever be in the slightest, that the majority of male gamers are even sexualizing these characters at all.
Right.
Because to me, when I play, say, the Super Mario 3D Land on Wii U, which I did recently with some friends, and I pick Peach, which I did, I'm not picking Peach because she's a girl and I want to stick my penis in her. Yeah, I'm picking Peach because I like Peach.
Right,
I think she's
like Peach
cool.
too.
And when I pick Cammy in Street Fighter, I'm not picking Cammy because her ass is showing. I like that her ass is showing, don't get me wrong. I think it's a great character design and I certainly like her. But if she were a real person, I'd totally be all over that. I'd jerk in my dick all day. But I don't pick the character to play as because she's hot. I pick her because she's fun to play as and I like her and it feels good to fucking hit that head scissors on your friends.
Exactly. I completely agree. It's like, I don't know. It's just weird. Like, it's weird to try to feel guilty about finding a woman attractive. That strikes me as incredibly strange. Like,
welcome to fucking Western society.
If I were to say to my girlfriend, like, if I was too embarrassed to tell her that she's sexy when she's doing something sexy, that would be weird.
And it would hurt her feelings because she'd think that you didn't think she was sexy. Women want that. They really do.
I mean, I don't want to generalize.
For everyone. These angry, bitter, ugly, fat fucking feminists who somehow have gotten to where their voice is considered the norm are ruining it for men and women. That's why there's such a fucking epidemic of depression among both men and women. That's why women are more free and liberated in this country than they've ever been, but more depressed than they've ever been. That's why men fucking don't know how to be men anymore. That's why I'm getting on a whole other fucking thing.
Right.
I'm going on some fucking
before we go too deep into that, like
but,
the last time, like the first, my sort of introduction to this, like, because feminism was starting to become like a big part of the discussion around 2012 was when it started to really become a big thing in video games. And one of the games that early on, like not that early on into the feminism movement, but early on into the game's development, the game Skullgirls came under fire, right? And I thought it was so weird that this game came under fire because, first of all, it's got like really exaggerated cartoony designs, and yeah, some of them are sexy and they're meant to be sort of buxom or whatever, but at the same time it didn't feel like any of them were like sex objects at all, right? And the game is all women. It's a cast of like 9 female characters, and it's a phenomenal fighting game, like top class, some of the best sprite animation ever, in probably the best sprite animation in video games, just gorgeous to look at, amazing game, right? And the character designs, each of them was like really unique and had its own unique personality, right? So these 9 women, whereas like, because when I play something like fucking Tekken, I do feel like these women are just cardboard cutouts. They have no personality. They all look the same, and I'm like, okay, this is boring. Street Fighter does a way better job. Each of the women is at least distinct, you know? And in Skullgirls, it's 9 women who are all totally distinct from one another. All of them are totally different. It's funny, there is actually, and, you know, I know the game is trying to play up sexy to a degree. There's one girl who's got giant tits, and they hang down, and she's always in, like, the sexy nurse outfit and stuff. And if you look at their bios online, it shows the like, it's like really detailed bios, and it tells you their cup size, and I realized that each character has a different cup size, so it's like a gradient and like of breast sizes, so which is funny, and you know, it's kind of cute. I can see why it would bother some people that you need to know their breast sizes, but at the same time these bios were really in depth, and I'm reading them online, and there's a whole section where it'll be like everything this character likes and dislikes, you know, like all their likes and dislikes, and it was completely normal human being. Like these characters were really fleshed out in their bios, like surprisingly they weren't just like, you know, cutout characters that could be anybody. Each of them had a distinct personality that was represented in their fighting style, you know, a backstory. They were fleshed out full characters. Yes, some of them were sexy, but that doesn't make them worse characters. They were great characters. They just happened to be sexy. It's like if you told a stripper that she's a terrible person because she's a stripper, even though she could have a fucking heart of gold and be a great person, and she just happens to have a, you know, maybe this is what she likes to do, you know. Yes, there's some strippers who probably don't want to do it and feel like they're objectified and hate it, but at the same time that shouldn't ruin, you know, the reputation or whatever of the other strippers or whatever. So in a game like this, I thought there's nothing really sexist about this. It's sexy, but it's not sexist, you know, because there's no objectification. These women are very really drawn out characters. So that's the danger I think we fall into. I think people are too quick to group all of this stuff in together. It's sort of Film Crit Hulk's tangible details thing, where he talks often about how people, when they don't like something, they'll hook onto a tangible detail that they can take away and blame everything on that, even though it really has nothing to do with anything. Sort of like when people hated Star Wars Episode 1, everyone blamed Jar Jar. They all said, oh, it's Jar Jar Binks, because Jar Jar Binks is obvious. Yeah. The whole movie is bad. Everything about the movie is bad, but Jar Jar Binks is the obvious problem. So that's the tangible detail that everyone grabs onto, even though the real reason they hated the movie probably was all sorts of reasons that the movie's bad, as you will know if you've seen Plinkett's reviews, where he'll go super in depth about it, you know. Yep. And Film Crit Hulk has always said this is the biggest problem with the public conversation about any piece of media, is that people hook onto the tangible details and don't look deep into it. So that's the problem with the feminism movement right now, is that the tangible detail is sexiness, but sexiness isn't the problem. It's the fact that there's so many games that have women that aren't important at all, or aren't doing anything, or are useless, or need help, or are just there to be sex objects. And there's so many of them, but it's not the sexiness itself that is the problem. It's the tangible detail. The low neckline is not the feminist, you know, like, it's
just
the low neckline is not your enemy.
Fat women ruining it for everyone. They hate themselves and they hate their lives, so no one else is allowed to have fun. That's all it really is. That's all it boils down to. And you can say that's a stereotype, but it's a stereotype that's absolutely true. As most of them are. most stereotypes are true. I mean, let's be real here, folks. But
and it also bothers me that just a lot of people seem to think like wearing more clothes suddenly like makes it all like everything's okay. For instance, Alex Vance from Half-Life 2. Have you ever played Half-Life 2?
Yes.
Are you a fan of Half-Life 2?
I am not, and I know exactly where you're going with this.
So, Alex Vance is a very popular character, and a lot of people would consider her a strong and interesting female character. Now, mind you, I have not played all the way through Half-Life 2. I played a few hours of it. I thought it was horrible, and I stopped playing, because it's just not my kind of game. But I found Alex Vance to be this incredibly obnoxious and not realistic in any way character, right? And not just because everything in her life revolves around men, so she already, there's that element, and that's kind of obnoxious, but she just didn't feel real at all to me. And people act like because she's right, and people act like because she's
same thing with Ellie in The Last of Us, and that was my problem with that game. Ellie is perfect, and she's designed to be perfect to manipulate your fucking paternal desire.
I didn't think Ellie was really
perfect virginal girl.
Well, I thought they did a decent job making Ellie feel real. She felt real to me, but maybe it's just me.
Well,
but
Elizabeth then in that case.
Elizabeth definitely. She's a perfect example. Elizabeth is Alex Vance, by the way, and BioShock Infinite is Half-Life 2. They're pretty much the same fucking game. But Elizabeth and Alex Vance, both of them struck me as these incredibly lame, horrible, hackneyed characters because neither of them has any real personality. All they do is they have a tragic backstory, but people act like because their necklines aren't all the way down at their tits, that suddenly means they're great female characters. But the thing is, both of them are extremely sexual, like they're hot, These are hot girls. Alex Vance has huge tits, Elizabeth has huge tits. They're both, just because they're dressed a little bit more conservatively doesn't hide the fact that they're still designed to look like, the perfect model vision of what women should look like.
And there's so much better female characters, but because I don't know, I guess because they're not modern or they're not in games that I don't even know what it is, but maybe because they're older. I mean, there's so much better female characters in games that are really well developed and have like Heather in Silent Hill 3 is probably the best. I mean, she's a good one. She's the main character. She's not overly sexualized at all, really, but she's also not perfect. She's sarcastic and rude and snaps at people, and she's kind of a bitch, and she feels like a real person. And Tifa in Final Fantasy VII, she's fucking insecure, and she's not sure if she wants to tell Cloud the truth about what's really going on. She lies because she's afraid of losing him. She feels like someone who makes real decisions. She's not a perfect little fucking virginal cunt like Ellie. Just designed to make you feel like, oh god, I gotta protect this girl. Oh man, this fucking character is amazing because I feel drawn to her. Not realizing that the real reason you're drawn to Ellie is because you're a pedophile. And that's okay, we're all pedophiles in some small way. It's totally natural for a man to have those instincts toward a 13-year-old girl, but we just suppress them because society says, you don't have to feel ashamed of it, but don't fucking kid yourself. Don't bullshit yourself and pretend that Ellie or Elizabeth is some kind of amazing three-dimensional the fucking next step in female characters in games. No, she's just a sexy little object. More so of an object than some of the scantily clad women in other games, because at least those characters have personalities and backstories,
Right, like I can immediately, if I wanted to name it, I still think there is an issue of the fact that, pretty much every female character is sexy. And mind you, every guy character is too. So that's another thing where it's like a double-edged sword where, people are saying like, oh, every female character is sexualized. And I'm like, yeah, but every guy character is guy porn,
but that's not real because that's a male power fantasy and you're a cis-privileged white male scum.
I mean, yeah, but that's the thing. It's a male power fantasy. It's not a good character. It's not an interesting, well-written male character. They're all fucking... Like, again, we go back to, like, The Last of Us, and it's like, this big, burly, manly man who's rugged, and he's gonna protect all the, the little girl, or the guy from fucking BioShock Infinite, where you're like this, oh yeah, you're a hard old, like a war criminal, but let's see some fucking Shinji Ikaris in video games, and see how fucking, even then, when we do get Shinji, because in Japanese games, there's plenty of characters like that, but it's always just someone for a middle schooler to relate to.
Tries emo.
Exactly.
So it's just people are just never happy. They don't know what the fuck they want. I mean, if you have a character The second that a male character shows any kind of doubt or fucking like a character arc in any way, oh, he's emo, he's a fucking pussy pansy piece of shit. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
You want to talk about some great male characters? Look at, because Mass Effect is pretty much what I come to for anything where it's like good characters or good story, because it's the only game I've really played where I really thought it had that.
Well,
Nothing to do with
play Mass Effect 3 then.
I've played it.
Stay
it's awful.
don't
No, I played all three. Mass Effect 3 is completely awful. I'm exaggerating. I think it's a good game, but it pissed me off throughout the whole. Not just the ending. Everyone gets mad at the ending. I think the whole game is retarded.
Yeah, it hurt me in ways that I can't fully express or articulate.
I was lucky enough that I played all three at once. You know, like I played them after they were all three out, so it wasn't like I had to wait all this time and, you know, play it. And again, I don't think it's a bad game. And it has some great parts, because the best character in the entire Mass Effect trilogy is Mordin Solus, in my opinion, and he gets the best ending in Mass Effect 3.
That was the one shining moment of that game, was Mordin's part.
And who is Mordin Solus? He is such a fucking good character, because he's like, okay, yes, in a way, he's definitely a manly archetype in a way, but not in like, he's not a grizzly, you know, like, oh yeah, I'm this big tough dude kind of way. First of all, he's a skinny little alien guy with a high-pitched voice, but he's a doctor, and he's a cutthroat, hard-ass motherfucker, right? And his morals are kind of skewed, but he's trying to become a better person. He has this amazing arc, like, holy shit. The amount of detail in this character's presentation is phenomenal. And even if he is still, he's someone to look up to. And I think game characters all try to be that, but he is actually that. He is actually a character that you go, wow, I want to have that kind of evolution in my life. I want to, you know, he really tells you something about yourself and about humanity, and that's what makes a great character.
And that's what makes a great science fiction.
Right, and a great role model character, you know, whereas all these other games, like someone like the guy from The Last of Us, and mind you, the trick of that game is that he's not really a good role model. In the end, you kind of have the up in the air, you know, you don't really know if he was good or bad, but altogether, he's not that interesting.
I was on his side all the way. I don't see how he's morally ambiguous at all. I totally would have been like, yeah, fuck him.
Yeah, I felt the same, because at the end of the game, I said I would have done the exact same thing. Yeah. Like, there's no question I would have done that, because the chances were so low of it succeeding. I'd have just been like, no, I'm going to save my friend, and I'm just going to go live in the country. You know, like, why not? So
yeah, a lot of times when people say, like, oh, man, this was so morally ambiguous, I'm like, wait, it was supposed to be morally ambiguous?
Right. I mean I get why it would be, but the presentation didn't make it come off to me as like, and I explained this in my own podcast on the game.
If they were trying to be morally ambiguous about it, then they shot themselves in the foot by making the entire story of the game about putting you on his side and putting you in his shoes.
Well, I think they made it morally ambiguous by failing to make it so it actually seemed likely that it was going to work. Because this was the whole concept here, was that this was a slim chance. These people had been trying for like 30 years to get this right, and they had been failing. They thought that maybe Ellie might have the cure, but we don't know that. There's no confirmation. There's no way of knowing.
And even if it did work, why would you want that? Wouldn't you rather have a world where fucking giraffes can walk around in the city?
Yeah, I mean, indefinitely, if you're attached to the... Because I think that's why they put that moment right before the hospital scene, where you can kind of be enraptured in this world. There's good things in that game. It's definitely got a lot of cool tricks like that. But
it's a good game. My problems with it stem more from people's reaction to it than the game itself. I mean, It's Naughty Dog, and they know how to tell a story, and they know how to make... They know how to blend the action into the cutscenes and the gameplay and make it all... It's a good game.
Unless it's Uncharted 3.
Uncharted 3 was kind of a big fucking letdown from Uncharted 2.
I don't concede on that. I haven't, mind you, I haven't played through all of Uncharted 3, but I played about 2 hours of it, and I got really pissed off
Uncharted
because
2 is fantastic, but Uncharted 3 let me down a little bit.
Every fucking 5 minutes, I had the control taken away from me, or I had to walk really slow. Like, there's one part, I remember this is the exact moment where I was fed up, because I kept having all these little scripted sequences and parts where... what pissed me off is that the controls would change, right? Because, like, let's say you're walking, and then you have to start scooting through a tight spot, and he's moving at a different speed, even though you're still pressing the same amount on the controller, you know? And it was like, I don't feel like I'm controlling the character, because he's constantly changing the way he moves. I should probably, at some point, play that game and write a review of it, because, again, it's one of those that's universally praised, and I thought it was awful from the get-go. And I loved the first two Uncharted, you know, so yeah. But I don't even remember what we're talking about anymore.
Oh, we're talking about video games, man. Let me tell you. And man, I mean, we're talking all this stuff about sexism and games journalism and Mass Effect 3 and all that stuff just gets me fucking down, man. Let me tell you. Puts me in a funk, makes me feel sad deep in my man heart. But I want to talk about games that are good. And we were talking earlier about Dark Souls, and the thought that I had while we were talking about that is the thing that makes Dark Souls such a fantastic game to me is the same thing as Tomb Raider, the first one. I mean, people who don't really know, I mean, Dark Souls, the credit that it gets is always, oh yeah, the Souls games. People like those because they're really hard and they don't hold your hand to it. And that's true, but
I just came up with the perfect phrase for it. I'm going to completely undercut you and say it myself. What makes Dark Souls great is that every single moment of the game is memorable.
Well,
all of it.
Like
every single moment.
It's not just the difficulty that makes it so good to me, and it's a big part of it. I love that it's hard and that it's a challenge, unlike most games. But the thing to me that makes it great, especially in Dark Souls, is how it drops you into the world and you can go in any goddamn direction you want, and just the sense of exploration and discovery that it gives you. And just like that first moment that I was talking about in Tomb Raider, when you first see that T-Rex, when you first fucking find that secret path way in the back of that fucking swamp, and you go down that tree, and you end up in Ash Lake, and that fucking music plays, and you're on the beach, and you look in the distance, and you see these fucking giant trees holding up the world, and you realize what it is you're looking at. That fucking moment, that's a Tomb Raider T-Rex moment right there. That's the moment when I realized this game is more than just some fucking hard game that's fun because it's hard. This game's a work of art.
And that's why I put Ash Lake in my video, the like why and how I play games, because I was like,
I'll never forget that moment. It was amazing.
How many reviewers that reviewed this game, even if they loved it, how many of them had seen Ash Lake when they wrote their review? Unless their review came out like much after the game, how many? Because you don't have to go there. There is no reason. I know a lot of people who've played through the whole game, never knew about Ash Lake. My little brother Victor, he didn't find out about it till like his third playthrough, that there was this whole area down there.
And how amazing is that? That something that jaw-dropping and such a big part of the game can be completely optional. You could miss it if you didn't know about it.
Right. And it's gorgeous to look at. Like, it's super cool. And everything in the game, every location is super memorable. The world feels alive. You can go in any direction, and more importantly, they're all valid. But you never feel like you're playing, like, because if you go any direction in, like, Skyrim, it all leads to boredom. But if you go any direction in Dark Souls, it all leads to crazy good shit. Like, because, you know, most people think, oh, well, I went to the left and I died, and it was too hard. I went to the right and I was able to kill enemies, so clearly I need to go to the right. But every once in a while, some crazy soul goes, oh, the left is harder. Let's go that way and see what happens. And then that person who decided to sequence break gets a bunch of really cool items for going the other way and is much stronger and has a better time with the game throughout because of it, you know. Because I remember that my best friend, who has now played through the game like 35 times, he went to the left first, and he went and gathered all these items around the catacombs before he continued on his journey, and it helped him out a lot. And if you ever watch my favorite, well, not necessarily my favorite, but there's a great series of Dark Souls videos, because there's shitloads of Dark Souls videos out there, because there's so much to do in the game and it can be played so many ways. There's a lot of challenge videos and stuff, but the one that really grabbed me, and this is like I want to say 30-minute video, or series of videos, is called Everything Before the Gargoyles, or Everything You Can Do Before the Gargoyles. Because most people, the way they'll play is that they'll go through, they'll go up through the Undead Burg, the Undead Parish, and then they'll fight the Gargoyles as the second boss in the game. There's the Minotaur first, and then the Gargoyles. And that's when you ring the first bell. This will open up the depths. You'll go down there, fight the Gaping Dragon.
It's
then you'll go to
how many
you'll go to
different paths
Blighttown.
you can take.
Right, and then you'll go to Blighttown and you'll kill Quelaag and you'll ring the second bell. But you don't have to ring the bells in order. You can actually go, like, you can go all the way into the catacombs, kill the first boss there, and grab this big-ass sword, because if you join the Covenant of, what's his name, Gravelord Nito, he gives you this fucking huge sword, right? So you can get that first thing in the game. Level 0, you can straight up just sprint all the way through, dodge all the enemies, get to that place, make a pact with Gravelord Nito, get a big-ass sword. Then you can run back. You might have to grind to use the sword, but you get that sword, and then you can go down to Blight Town, because you can take the backwards path through New Londo Ruins, go in there, kill Kellogg as your first actual boss kill, and then ring the second bell first. Then you can go to Ash Lake and do everything there. You can go to the forest and kill the giant butterfly and fucking... I don't think you can kill Sif there, but you can do all kinds of shit in the fucking forest. You can kill Havel, get this flip ring, and you can do all of this before ever fighting what most people consider to be the second boss of the game, the Gargoyles. I don't even think you need to kill the Minotaur before the Gargoyles.
Yeah, that's another thing that's so great about it, is how every playthrough of that game is going to be different. I mean, on my first playthrough of Dark Souls, the whole way through the game, I didn't even realize that if you had your humanity up, that you could summon people. I didn't even realize it. So I played through the whole game as like an undead, and it was probably like 3 times as hard because of it, but I didn't know. On my second playthrough, I finally figured that shit out, and it was just a whole different experience. I started out, I summoned this hot babe. I was a hot naked barbarian babe. I made this character. I was this naked barbarian babe with like a master key, and I called myself Anita Solkesian. And I decided I was gonna be the most hardcore lesbian bitch, going through killing all destroying shit, just kicking ass all over the place. And I played through the whole game in my fucking underpants, because that's what you do. That's what you do when you're Anita Solkesian. You play through the game in your fucking underpants. And I played through the fucking game, and I summoned this other hot chick, and she was a girl too. So we were like a lesbian duo. We were like a duo of rug munchers. We're a duo. Sing with me. A pair of lonely ones who were meant to be a two. That's what I did. And me and this girl, we formed a lesbian tag team, and we went through and we fucking tag team. We went down the fucking stairs. I used my master key thing. We went down the stairs. We beat the shit out of fucking Havel. She left. She gave me a fiery sword, and I was like, holy shit, I have a fiery sword now. And it was a whole different fucking experience than the first time. And that's another thing that's so amazing about that game. It's always different. It's unique.
Right.
It's chaos theory, as Jeff Goldblum would say.
Yeah, and there's no required way. There's no thing you have to do. Some people say like, I don't like that game because I have to grind, and I'm like, you don't. You never do. There's no point. I've watched my friend do a soul level 1 rather, run through of the game. He never upgraded any stats. Never did any of that shit. He started off with like his fucking like this one sword that he could use, and he would fight the boss. And the boss fights lasted like fucking 30 minutes half the time because he's chipping away at him. Yeah. But he was so good at dodging that he could just dodge all their attacks. If a boss actually hit him, he's fucking dead. 1 hit kill, maybe 2 hits if he's lucky. He had a lot of like rings and stuff that would make his health go up, so he wouldn't have to worry about certain things. But for the most part, he's playing with like basically no armor and like a starter fucking sword and just chipping away at enemies because he's good enough at dodging that it doesn't matter. And you can play that game. It's a perfectly valid way to play it. I've seen fucking Simon Belmont run where someone has a whip, and it was like a video of him fighting Artorias, which is one of the hardest fucking bosses in the game, just using a whip, and the whole thing is set to Castlevania music, like the video. And I was like, this game is endless fun. There's literally no shortage of things. I've seen crazy videos in that game. There's some people who there's like the armor of Smog, who's like the super fat guy, and they build they go out into the forest, and they take a bunch of these little glowing stones that you can put on the ground, and they built a ring of these stones, and then they'd go in there and sumo wrestle in the fat guy armor inside the ring. And the goal is to knock other, like they would have people invade them or whatever, or they'd invade, or yeah, they basically let people come to their world, and they'd be standing in the middle of the ring, and just like stand there until the other person would change their armor and fight them sumo style.
I saw this video of this guy. He had that big sword that's like a dragon tooth, so it's just like you fucking slam it and he kills everybody.
Right.
He dressed his guy up like Santa Claus, and he went into one of the forests, and he laid down a bunch of like shiny like gifts for people, and people would come and they'd take a gift, and he'd wait there for them. He'd let people come into his game and take stuff, but if people took more than one thing, he'd deem them naughty, and Santa Claus would fucking go ape shit and kick their asses. And this is like a 20-minute video on YouTube, and it's like the funniest fucking he does it like fucking 30 times, and it never stops being the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Dark Souls is without a doubt, in my opinion, it's the greatest game ever made. It's this endless.
Yeah,
it's
definitely one of the best games of the last generation.
I think that, like, because I've heard this phrase thrown around where people refer to games as a possibility space, or like, which I hate that phrase because it sounds so bad. Like, it's one of those that you hear it and you just go, really, possibility space? But I get, in this context, the possibility space of Dark Souls is enormous, right? Yeah. It's up there with the likes of fucking Minecraft. But Minecraft is a game where you, like, hit blocks against blocks and then you build blocks. And, you know, I completely appreciate the appeal of Minecraft. But for a game to have the amount of possibilities that Dark Souls has while still having really tight mechanics, a really dense and interesting world, it's got everything that would make a conventional game great, and it's got endless possibilities. How the fuck do you have that? How can you be an action game that's as good as Devil May Cry 3 or fucking or Bayonetta or Ninja Gaiden, and yet still be an RPG that's as good as any RPG, if not better, in a world that's as good as any other world in any other game, and still have an amount of possibilities that rivals a sandbox game?
And a game that's like, it's like, I mean, like, Minecraft is a game where you express your creativity in terms of what you can build, but in Dark Souls, the way you express your creativity is in how you play and how you kill. It's creativity in the kill is what it is.
Right.
And the thing, like, that's really like a mark of, like, so many games that are classics that are like the great games of all time, is that there's, like, so much creativity involved, like so many options and so many ways you can beat it. I mean, another game that's just like that, just like Dark Souls, is Super Metroid. And I don't know if you've ever played Super Metroid.
Believe me, it's in my top 5.
The amount of ways that people have discovered over the years to play through that game and the amount of different paths you can take is mind-boggling, especially for back then. Right. Every time I play that game, it's different, and it's fucking beautiful.
Super Metroid is an absolute classic.
Metroid is a fucking masterpiece. And I'm one of those guys who I would even put Metroid Prime on the same level. I mean, a lot of people will go, I like the 2D ones or I like the 3D ones. I think they're both fantastic in their own way.
I still have never beaten Metroid Prime because I played through late 2012, I think. I played through all of the 2D Metroids, and then I was going to do the Prime games. I got most of the way through Prime. The problem I have with that game is that the death system is fucking awful, because when you, like, there's very rare checkpoints, and when you die, you go all the way back to a checkpoint, and it's really frustrating and obnoxious, because the game's pretty hard. And there's one point where you're, like, in the Space Pirate home base, and you have to fight, like, the Juggernaut one, and it was just this long stretch of time before I got to another save room, and then I died and went all the way back, and I was like, that's 30 to 40 minutes that I have to play through again. Fuck that, you know, like, and I don't keep anything. Like, another great thing about Dark Souls is that even though you die a lot, you keep things. You never feel like you've reset. You know, you go back to the bonfire, but if you go back and get your souls, you'll have more souls by the time you're done, because you killed all those enemies twice, and now you have twice the amount of souls, you have twice the skill, you've played through it again, so you know what's going to happen better, you know. Altogether, you just have the game keeps building on itself and just becomes better and better each time you go through it.
You can't hear me peeing into a Pepsi bottle, by the way, can you?
Is that what that is? And yes.
Because I broke the seal, and now I can't stop.
Are you seriously peeing into a Pepsi bottle?
Yeah, and I'm holding it with one hand, and it's getting heavier, and I'm afraid I'm going to drop it.
You couldn't have just gone to the bathroom.
We're having a conversation. We're building a rapport here. This is good stuff. The people want to hear our opinions on things, and they want.
I want to let everyone know that if you can hear that subtle sound of running water in the background, that is Drowning in Footwear pissing into a Pepsi bottle.
I can't just cut the conversation short in the middle. People want to hear it. People need to experience what, like, a friendship is, because I assume most of the people subscribed to my Brony channel don't have any fucking friends. You know, they live vicariously through this shit. That's why so many people watch Game Grumps. They want to have companionship in their lives.
No, you know what? That's actually a good point, because we were talking about this before we started this podcast. There's a lot of the fun of watching people do stuff on the internet is that it's basically the modern age equivalent of hanging out with friends that you wish you had, or friends that you don't have. Like, because I was watching all of Jesse here's
watching, like, a cooler older brother.
Like, I was watching your entire fucking video of you watching the the new episode. I was talking to him while I was watching it. It's an hour and a half, and I was like, I'm rendering my video. I have no plans today. I have nothing I plan to do. My girlfriend's out at work because she got called back in on some bullshit, so she had to go back, which sucks for her and for everyone in the world. And so she was at work, and I was like, fuck, and I had nothing to do, so I was like, oh, I'm going to watch all of Drowning in Footwear rambling at a camera for an hour and a half. And it was mindless, and most of it, I mean, I didn't really, like, it wasn't funny in, like, a comedy sense. It wasn't like I was watching a comedy show and going, ha, 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 ha. Yeah. It wasn't like that. It was just, I'm watching you, and I'm friends with you, and I was like, it's just like I'm hanging out with them, you know?
I kind of was... I don't know. I don't want to say that I was trying to make this the worst video possible or trying to make a bad video, but I really just wanted to give a middle finger to the very concept of just like of like a reaction video. Like I just wanted to, like, what if I did a reaction video and I didn't actually watch what I was reacting to until like 40 minutes in, and I spent the whole time getting drunk and talking about nonsense,
right? And
playing fucking Lion King.
I mean, the whole reason I figured this out more than anything because I loved Game Grumps. You know, I stopped watching it because I don't have time anymore. And it just happened to coincide that I was running out of time right around when Danny showed up, and I went, fuck it. But, so I never have time to watch it, so I don't watch it. I unsubscribed way the fuck back, like 6 months ago, because I just didn't have time, and it was clogging up my YouTube feed because they put up fucking 3 videos a day. But the whole reason I loved it is because I really think that me and Egoraptor would be good friends, right? That's always the sense I've had listening to him. And it was one part looking up to him, and one part thinking that, because I think he's a great analytically minded person, right? But then when I listen to Game Grumps, I also realize that he can't do it on the fly. He has to really think about these things. He rewrites his videos again and again and again and all that. And I realized that this guy would be really fun to just converse with, you know? Like, because there's some content creators that I don't really want to be friends with them, but I respect their content.
People will, like, call him out for, like, being stupid on Game Grumps. Well, of course he's
playing a game, right?
He's playing a game with his friends. When you're just talking to a guy on the couch, you're a fucking idiot. That's how it works for everybody.
Like, I mean, for me, personally... Like, because I analyze shit on the fly all the time, but that's all I do is analyze. I'm not also a comedian. I'm not also an animator. I'm not also a guy who's, you know... Because when I do Let's Plays with my friends, it does mostly consist of me analyzing, you know, the game, and my opinion doesn't dramatically change through more thought. But also, that's what I do. That's all I do. I write reviews and analysis, and I've been doing that since I was 8. You know, Egoraptor is an animator first and foremost. He's a comedian first and foremost. You know, he's said a million times that the main goal of Game Grumps is to be funny. So when they talk about games criticism, it's often interesting, but it's usually not that well thought out, because he has said himself that to write something like Sequelitis, he goes through 20 drafts. He takes, like, months and months writing it. I can churn out something of that level, you know, like dialogue wise, not comedy wise, but of that level of analysis takes me a day, you know, like if I was coming up with something like the Mega Man X review and I was reviewing it, and it would not take me long to come up with the concepts and to figure out what I wanted to say, but it wouldn't be funny and it wouldn't be animated,
wouldn't be
you know,
the same as how,
as
how so the latest was.
My point is simply that Game Grumps struck me as, it was not like, oh, Egoraptor is this great analyst person. It was, he would be fun to talk to, a lot of fun. Yeah. And listening to him talk with JonTron, who also would be a lot of fun. JonTron would personally, he would get on my nerves, but in a good way. You know, like, I would really love to have him around. And they would be so fun to have. And
it's
they're
so
both
cool when you find a guy who you like, not just for his content, but you get a liking to, like, the person himself.
Right.
And you're like, this guy would be cool. Like, I was watching Spoony, his commentary on his Final Fantasy 13 review, and, like, the review itself, it's a fantastic review. He nails it. I mean, he talks about how objectively terrible, I mean, horribly written the story is, but, like, he talks about Final Fantasy 13, and his reviews are hilarious, and he makes good points, and he analyzes everything, and he's really good at the stuff. But when he does his commentaries on the review afterwards, that's when his real personality shines through, and, like, how he really thinks. And I'm listening to that. I'm listening to his commentary, and I'm thinking, you know, I'd fucking love to hang out with this fucking guy. Right. He seems like such a cool dude, like a genuine dude.
Here's my version of that is Yahtzee, because I've been watching Yahtzee reviews since 2008. and I think they're hilarious, and I love watching them. But most of them, I think his format is broken for him.
I think
his format doesn't work.
If Yahtzee has like a cool personality,
right,
it gets buried in the way his content.
That's the thing. Because him and his friend do Let's Plays, right? He has this Australian guy, and they do Let's Plays together, and I fucking love them. Like, they're amazing. Because at first it was, what they would do is, one of them would play through an old game, and mind you, they're both, like, Yahtzee is exactly what he acts like in his videos, but he doesn't talk that fast. You know, like, that's the difference. Yahtzee's personality and his attitude and everything is exactly what he's saying in his videos, but it's not this fast-talking, wisecracking guy. It's this, you know, like, down-tempo, somewhat depressed and downtrodden kind of guy. You know, because he's said a million times in his videos that, you know, he hates everyone but himself, you know, as just as much. He's a self-loathing kind of guy, you know, and when you listen to him talk, I don't know. He was exactly like what I expected him to actually be like. Is what he is in his in the Let's Plays, and it's funny because he plays with this Australian dude, and like I said, originally it was Let's Plays where they'd play old shitty adventure games, and then they'd record themselves talking while watching the footage of one of them playing. Then they started a series that they're doing now called Let's Ramble Over, and they'll just play a game for an hour. It doesn't matter what it is. The only criteria is that it has to be something that's boring to watch, and so they'll pick a game that's totally boring to watch, and they'll just talk to each other, and they'll have like a list of, you know, topic, like they'll talk about the game at first, and then they'll have a list of podcast topics to go over while they're playing. And it's not just that I love the show, but also that it literally is the exact same as the Pub Crawl, the radio show I do. Like, oddly enough, because the Pub Crawl is me and an Australian guy as well, although the personalities are kind of like reversed in this case, where even though, because, you know, Cider from the Pub Crawl is an Australian academic who studies video games. The Australian on the show is also an academic. He doesn't study video games, but he's got a lot of, you know, strong opinions, and he talks just like Cider does. But the funny thing is that in both cases, one of them is the talkative one, and in this case, it's me and the Australian guy from the other show. I'm trying to remember his fucking name so I don't keep calling him that, but like
Monterey Jack.
When I listen to him talk to Yahtzee, I feel like it's almost exactly what it would be like if I talked to Yahtzee. Because this guy reminds me so much of myself when I listen to him talk. He has the same attitude, the same, like, quickness to get into, like, topics, the way he'll just ramble on and on and on and on without end. He's just like me, but a little bit older and more of a dick. Like, he's a little bit more elitist because he's he's got this elitist Australian attitude a little bit, and, you know, but both of them are like, they know they're pricks. They're pricks, but they're extremely self-aware pricks, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And these videos are typically an hour to an hour and 20 minutes, and I'll watch the whole thing and just be completely into it. And then I'll go on the Pub Crawl and have like the exact same conversations that they did. It's like almost surreal. There was one where they literally went on a rant about Tumblr social justice bloggers that was the same rant we had just done on the radio like 2 nights before, and I was like, holy fuck. So yeah, like, to me, it's like we've been saying, it's like hanging out with friends. It's like saying, wow, I really feel like I connect with this person, and I'll never be able to talk to him, you know, for real, or even if we could. Like, you know, I'll watch your videos, but me and you can't be talking all the time. You know, we do podcasts every once in a while, and that's fun, and then we can, you know, watch each other's videos and still be like, oh, you know, yeah, what's old Jesse up to, you know?
Because we're professionals with work ethics.
All of my friends...
Unlike all of my fans, my lovely fans who I have on Skype, who can't seem to understand what a fucking red circle with a line through it means!
Not to mention your status says, I'm busy, fuck off.
Yeah, seriously, it said that for like 2 weeks and nobody cares. Nobody's paid any attention to it.
But, yeah, like, my little brother Victor watches all of your videos, and he listens to all the podcasts that me and you do together. So for him, it's the same thing. Like, even though I'm friends with you, for the people who aren't doing the podcast, who, even though they are aware of both of us, you know, they'll still watch the video. And I have several friends who watch your videos, and, like, offline friends. So, you know, that's the sense that it is. And Victor has said, he's like, you know, I don't care what Jesse's videos are about. I'm going to watch them because it's him, you know. That's why I watch your videos. I watch your fucking wrestling videos, you know. I mean, that was the first...
That's dedication.
One of the first things that I watched on your channel was the WrestleMania video where you fucking were drinking the strawberries, and I enjoyed the shit out of it just because there's this weird lucid genius to it where you're rambling about nothing, but then you'll say some shit that was like, oh, that's exactly how I feel. Because you talk about subjectivity in that video.
I've drank 5 of those since we started this podcast.
Holy fuck! How? So are you like wasted by now?
I don't know, kinda.
5 strawberritas, shit, I'd be gone.
I fucking love them. This is all I have. This is my last one too. Unfortunately.
I'm planning to get very drunk later tonight. By the way, we're recording this at 8 a.m. for anyone who's wondering. He's consumed 5 strawberritas by 8 a.m.
It's still night to me. I haven't gone to bed yet. I mean, my sleeping pattern is that of a lion. Like, I literally, I hunt and I do my thing and I sleep whenever I get tired for as long as I need to.
Oh, that's exactly... I live the same way. I do the same thing. It's, I'm usually up anywhere between 12 and 16 hours, and then I sleep like 10 hours, like 8 to 10 hours a day. And so it's constantly desynchronized. It's never like a 24-hour schedule. I don't wake up at the same time any 2 days in a row, unless I've been like I'll start falling asleep at like 10, and then I'll get woken up at 6 for dinner. Well, but then at some point it relapses and everything goes to shit, and I never keep one schedule. When
I get into the pattern of being asleep during the day and being up all night until like 2 in the afternoon, and then sleeping until the sun's down again. Especially in the winter when the sun's always down. And then it gets to where you just never see the sun, and you get fucking depressed. I get fucking depressed when I get into that pattern, because it grates on you when you. For me, it's both.
Like, I need to see the sun, but at the same time, being up during the day, I can't get anything done. Like, I'm just less productive when I'm. But
it's like amazing how it's like how just not being able to see like light and not being able to see the sun will like get into your brain and give you that chemical fucking reaction of like, I'm not getting enough photosynthesis, and just make you depressed.
There's an amazing line from one of my favorite songs. It's a song called Get Out by Circa Survive, and it's just like a loud, like angry, it's kind of about writer's block. Like, it's a song about writer's block, and he's like just pissed off. Like, it's the angriest song about writer's block ever, where it's like literally he wants the words to get out of his head. He's like, it's fucking like infuriating that this is like a loud, like screaming emo song kind of thing. And there's one line where he says, "Locked myself up in a room without a window just to see if it would make it any easier to breathe. I was wrong. Never underestimate the daylight. There it's so much easier to breathe." And I was like, I totally relate to that, because you sit there and you go like, fuck, and you just lock yourself down, and you want to try to get stuff done, and then you realize, oh my god, everything sucks. I need to go outside. I need to do something, because I'm going to die.
Yeah, sometimes you think, like, I'm going to like lock myself, I'm going to cut off everything and just focus on my work, but when you do that, you can't focus on it. It's almost like like a guy like me, it's almost like I need the chaos, like I fucking thrive on that shit.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of that where I think it makes, because I'm definitely one of those like artist mood swing kind of guys, where there's like times that, you know, I'll very quickly over the course of the day go from being like, everything sucks, I hate life, everyone needs to die, and then like 10 minutes later I'm inspired, and like I immediately have the spark, and now everything's great in the world, you know?
Like I need people in my family pissing me off and like stealing my car and getting me in debt with their bullshit and their traffic tickets, and I need my fans interrupting my work on Skype every 5 seconds to just fucking say, "Hi, how you doing?" Like, I hate it, but I need it because it puts me on edge, and it fucking it bleeds into like how I write and how I perform.
I definitely think that could be why I've been doing. It could be even like, I don't want to draw direct. Like say this is the cause, but I've been a lot more productive in the last couple months, and it was like partly because I finally started making money off my videos, but it's also the fact that I've been so much more stressed because of it. Because during the summer months, I was under a lot of stress because I wasn't making any money, but at the same time, everything was going so naturally and well, and it was just like, everything was a matter of time. It was always like, oh, well, you know, season 4 is going to start eventually, so I'm going to have stuff to do then. Or, well, my Patreon will get up eventually, and I'll have stuff to do then. But there was, you know, nothing pressing me to like, well, you need to do it now, because it's important now. It was all like, well, I have to wait on stuff. And then now that it's here, it's like, you know, all the people who like waste my time or make me frustrated, or all the, you know, people online who involve me in bullshit drama and all that, and it all makes me stressed out, but it means I immediately need to work harder, both to get my mind off of it, to get my mind into the work, and because it's like, it makes me paranoid, because whenever something's going wrong, I feel like everything can slip away, you know, everything might, like, even though it's going really well, who knows what'll happen. Like, where in December I made like $900 through YouTube, through just YouTube ad money, right? And that was great. And then the month of January, it's like less than 200, and I don't know why. It's just like, these videos didn't get monetized, or this one for some reason didn't count.
Well, that's
you know,
how I feel, because like the reviews, because like my Little Pony reviews are fucking like 3 weeks behind at this point. I'm still working on Pinky Apple Pie. It's barely even half done, and like I'm working on it, and it's like, I started the Patreon. It's like, oh, thank God, I can finally make money off this. People like me enough; they pay that they want to donate and support my channel, and that's awesome. But now I have responsibility to make this not suck, and it's like, fuck.
That's the hardest thing right now, is just like going between like, oh shit, I don't necessarily want to talk about this episode, but it's like everything means I have to, you know, and it's. Like with the Pinky Apple Pie one, that's where I finally was like, you know, fuck it, like, I don't need the money that badly. I'll just release, because I don't care. I had nothing to say. I didn't want to talk about My Little Pony. I wanted to. I was in the middle of some shitty drama on the internet that I wanted to get away from, and I just wanted to go play Zelda, and that's what I did. I made a short video so I wouldn't have to work on it.
Was that around the time that we did the podcast where everybody hated you for like a week afterwards?
Yeah,
Is that the one you're talking about?
Well, that wasn't the drama, but that was around the same time. Yeah, like. All this drama started happening, and it was like, because the first week of January was me dealing with like Vidya and his issues, and then the second week of January was like me dealing with all these fucking like drama online, and so finally for the third week I was like, all right, everything needs to stop. I'm getting off the internet. I'm gonna go play the Wind Waker. Like, Ashley left to go to work, so she wasn't on Skype. So for 3 days, I sat there and I just played the Wind Waker constantly, like for 3 whole days, and hung out with one of my friends, and that was it. I never went online except to like once a day.
Man.
It was like, dude, like seriously, do it. If you get pissed off, leave the internet and just do other shit, because like I even told Munchie had to do the same thing, because he got so pissed off at the same, like, he was involved in the same controversy I was, and he got so pissed off like a few days ago because of something that happened, that he was like, I've never hated a person until now. Like, that's how bad it was for this thing. And I said, Munchie, get off the internet, go play video games, like, for as long as you need. Just go, because it worked for me. I felt so much better. All the drama and stress was just gone. I played Zelda for 3 days. It felt great. I had a great analysis of it. You know, people loved that video. I was surprised, because I was like, I'm about to put out a video that's mostly me bitching about a cult classic that everyone loves, and even people who love the game were like, yeah, I appreciate the points. And I was like, this is perfect. This is all I needed. I know it doesn't have enough hits. I know it couldn't get monetized because fucking Nintendo sucks a fat dick, and they blocked it from monetization. I don't even care. It's 6,000 views by people who enjoyed it. No one pulled out on Patreon from it. The comments were all good. I was like, this is perfect. This made up for Rainbow Falls being a huge clusterfuck of people complaining about it.
I mean, to me, it seems like I mean, my old channel, Johnny in Footwear, was supposed to be from the beginning mainly a game review channel. Mm-hmm. And the best part about that was that it gave me an excuse to play games, because I don't have fucking time to play video games at all anymore with the with the work that I do on the internet and on the videos.
It's exactly what happened to me.
And it seems like some of my happiest memories are like the first year after high school, where I fucking lived at my friend's house, and we just played games. We had like 3 TVs in one room, and we would all just sit there, and we'd be all each playing our own fucking games, and just having a blast together. And I feel so fucking nostalgic for that time in my life, and I miss it so badly. I'm like, yeah, like, you don't know, like, sometimes I just fucking wish I could go back to that, or like, just fucking get my friends together for an extended period of time, and it's impossible now, because we're all fucking grown-ups doing our own thing. But just get my friends together and just play games like the old fucking days for just like a week at a time. Just fucking set aside a week. Just sit around on our asses and play video games together. That would be like a fucking... I would cherish that shit if I could get that shit together nowadays.
Right. Yeah, I don't really feel nostalgic for like old times most of the time, but I feel like what I want to get to now and what I got away from is the vision of what I wanted to be doing when I started all this stuff in like November of 2012. Because the whole idea was that it was going to not just be one thing. The pony was never important. It was always supposed to be a video game channel. That's what I bought all this equipment for.
Yeah.
It was because I wanted to make this big Mass Effect review, and between making pony videos and going to work, I didn't have time to play Mass Effect. And then I never got around to it, and I was too busy making pony videos because it was exciting, and I was getting all this fame and stuff, and it was like, whoa, this is cool. Something I'm doing is successful. I'm going to pour all my energy into it. But, where I wanted to be was not being the pony review guy. I wanted to be the everything review guy, especially video games. That was the whole original end goal.
Because you'd have to be fucking crazy to want to be the pony review guy.
Right.
I mean, it's great for you as a stepping stone. It's great for me as a stepping stone. But that's all it should ever be. And the people who are just comfortable being a pony guy, those people like freak me out. Those people are fucking crazy.
Well, it's because they're not hoping to be, something different.
Yeah.
Their end goal is not. All they did was say
with making videos, and you've got to think about expanding your horizons at some point, because the pony thing's not gonna fucking last forever. I mean, come on.
Right, and if this is what you're trying to do with your career, then for me, it's never been about ponies. It's been about analysis. I've been analyzing way before ponies, because a lot of these analysis people got into it because of My Little Pony. When they saw the analysis fandom, they went, "Oh, I want to do that too," and they jumped in. But I've been doing this forever.
I'm so fucking super glad that people are paying attention to my pony channel and that it's kind of sort of gaining ground a little bit.
Right.
And it's totally awesome to me, but at the same time, I can't wait until season 4 is over and I can go back to making fucking game reviews on my old channel. Like, I feel refreshed for game reviews. Before I felt burnt out on it. Now I feel like I can't fucking wait to start talking about video games again.
Yeah, exactly. It was so exciting when I made that video, because I'm sure you've noticed that the editing in my game reviews is like way more intensive, and it's because they involve me not, because all I have to do for a pony video is use the episode itself, and there's nothing better that I like, unless I was gonna go like full Silver Quill and like do animations and stuff, which I can't do because I can't draw and I don't like animation, and I could be funny like you or Anthony C, but that's not my style. My style is that it's all about the analysis. So there's really nothing better to show on screen in my videos than footage from the show, because what else is going to express my point? That's why some of the observations videos will often have all kinds of other stuff, because it's like I actually have other things that can express this. So like with the video game ones, it's not only do I not want to use game footage, both because it's going to get my videos taken down and because, it doesn't always actually illustrate your point well. It's cool that I can just go online. It's like an adventure. I hear a line and I say, okay, well, what's going to visually represent that line? Let me go online and find, the box art for this game, or like, how am I going to lay them out on screen? It's just little stuff, but it makes the editing so much more interesting than, let's see how many facial expressions I can put on screen in the course of this video, Are you peeing in a bottle again? You sick fuck. You complain about people farting and burping, and you piss into bottles.
Well, pissing is normal. Pissing is a normal bodily function.
So is farting.
No, it's not. Farting is disgusting.
Burping.
No, farting and burping is like some mutant shit that like fucking Chernobyl freaks do that like grew up in a sewer irradiated by toxic fucking shit in the atmosphere. Farting and burping is unnatural and no human should ever do it. Pissing is just a natural body function. I don't get grossed out or freaked out. Okay, here's the thing. If I'm with a girl, if I'm with a girl and she says,
I know where this is going.
I have to go to the bathroom and take a piss. Well, that's fine. Go take a piss. I don't fucking care. Good for you. But if I'm with a girl and she fucking burps and farts, I'm like, get out of here, you fucking mutant. What the fuck? You're a beast. You're an
for
animal.
Sure you were gonna start talking about like, I thought you were gonna say, if a girl's like having sex with me and she's like, I gotta piss, you'd be like, go for it.
Well, yeah, that's kinky. I like that too. I mean, that's a positive, is what that is.
Man.
But if if a girl pisses on me, well, that's fun for the whole family. But if a girl farts or burps on me, it's get out of my fucking bed. I'm not even.
What if she takes a shit on you?
Well, that's that's something that we have to discuss for a few weeks beforehand, but I think we can come to an arrangement or some kind of compromise in terms of that. But if a girl burps or farts on me during sex or just during anything, it's like you don't even get time to even put your clothes back on. Get out of my house, go walk off into the snow and die in the snow like a fucking Indian who's 90 years old and can't support the tribe anymore. Go die in the snow. I don't want to see you, hear from you, or smell you ever again, you nasty, dirty bitch. That's how I feel about farting and burping. It's an unnatural abomination. It's fucking was cursed on humanity after the first sin. That's how we, before fucking burping.
I don't even know what to say anymore. What were we talking about? There was a topic to this at some point.
We were talking about video games. I mean, I'm talking about burping and farting. That always gets me down. I mean, when you talk to me about burping and farting, that always makes me depressed. But when you're talking about video games, well, let me tell you. Oh my God, let me tell you about video games. Let me fucking tell you about Oh God!
There's always this moment in anything involving you. This moment happens.
This fucking 2-liter is full.
Oh my God! What the fuck have you been? Well, you said you drank like 6 Strawberritas, so I guess it's not surprising.
Easy come, easy go. It goes in, it goes out. You put the lime in the coconut and drink it all up.
Please don't drink it.
Oh, did I ever tell you that story about the time I drank piss?
No, you did not.
Man, this goes back to what I was telling you about, that beautiful year of my life when the first year after high school, when we all just hung out in the same house and played video games. Oh man, me and my buddy Dylan, when we were on our fucking video game sprees, he'd ever wanted to go to the bathroom. I mean, most of us, if we had to fucking pee, we'd go to the fucking bathroom like normal human beings. But this guy, fuck that, I'm not getting up from my game, he said. This guy used to pull out his dick and pee in bottles. My buddy Dylan would pee in bottles all over the fucking room, okay? Fine, whatever. You want to pee in bottles, pee in bottles. Who gives a shit? I would never do that, personally. Little did I know that there would come a time in my life when I bottomed out and hit a level of rock bottom where I indeed did piss in bottles regularly. But at that point in my life, I thought I would never do something so undignified. So this guy used to pee in bottles all the time, and I'd always make, why are you peeing in those bottles? Why are you doing that? You're, I love you, buddy. Oh, I love you, boy. Oh, let me tell you, this buddy is always pissing in the bottles. Me and this. That's what me and my friends, we're such a family. We love each other so much, we go fucking full Irish. Let me tell you something, boyo. That's how we are. But I was this guy peeing in bottles, but and that's fine. But one day, yeah, this guy, he peed in a 7-Up bottle. And 7-Up looks like pee anyways. It's the same kind of color, the same kind. So I'm in the bathroom. I'm peeing in the bathroom like a normal human being. I come out, I go back into the game room, I'm like, hey everybody, how's it going? I grab that old 7-Up 2-liter off the counter, I open that shit up, I take a swig. I'm telling you, the minute that shit touched my tongue, I knew exactly what had happened to me. It was in my mouth. It was a big fucking swill too. I had this motherfucker's pee in my mouth. And, not many men have had another man's pee in their mouth, but I have. So let me tell you that I know what I'm talking about when I say that if you've never tasted another man's pee, you don't wanna. Just fucking cross that shit right off your bucket list. You don't ever want any of that because it tastes exactly like you'd expect it to taste. It tastes like fucking pee. You don't even have to taste pee to know what it tastes like. You know it tastes like fucking pee. Yeah. So I'm standing there with this fucking a mouthful of piss. And as soon as it's in me, I know what it is. I spit that shit out. I spray it like a fucking crazy daisy all over the goddamn room. I was the maddest you ever seen in my fucking life. Ain't never been fucking, I was mad. I was, you motherfucker! You cock-sucking motherfucker! When you cock-sucking, I told you not to pee! I told you something bad would happen if you could pissing in these bottles. Yeah, and look what you done did to me. Yeah, maybe I am insane. Maybe it's time for you, Jake the Snake Roberts, to find out just how insane I am. Yeah, I cut the biggest fucking piss-mouthed promo on my life. And then I fucking went in the bathroom, I fucking washed my mouth out with fucking baking soda. It was the worst day of my life, but looking back, it was the best day of my life, because it's a great memory that I can now share with the whole fucking world. Looking back, it was the best summer of my life.
Woo! Yeah! Oh, yeah.
You said it. Yeah. And that's how that happened. I want more. I'm out of strawberritas. I have nothing left in the house.
I don't know how to follow up the piss story. Is this the end of the podcast? It's an hour and 50 minutes long.
Oh, mate, I guess. I feel like there's so much untapped potential here. I mean, we should talk about video games more often. I mean, we always talk about fucking My Little Pony bullshit on this podcast for these fucking autists who follow us, who give a shit about My Little Pony. We want to talk about video games from now on.
Yeah, we can do more. I'm perfectly okay with that. Although we've kind of exhausted most of the gaming topics that I ever bring up when I talk about games. So
we exhausted all the we exhausted all of the hackneyed ones, all the boring, the cliche ones. Oh, video game journalism sucks. Oh, feminism's bad.
Right. This is the same.
Next time, on the next one, we'll be able to get fucking crazy and get way out there.
All right, let's try to come up with. Here's what we'll do. Here's an experiment we can do before the next podcast. Get your hands on, or if you already have one, some relatively obscure. Doesn't have to be like really obscure, but as long as like it could just be kind of old and a little obscure. Just play a really fucking obscure game, by next week. And we'll both play some random obscure game. It has to be full length, not just like some weird browser game. But we'll play something that's kind of weird and outside our comfort zone and discuss it on the next podcast.
Does it have to be something that I've never played before, or something?
Yes, it has to be something you've never played before.
Oh god, that means one of the 9,000 games I've bought from used game stores and played for 5 minutes and put down because they were shit.
In fact, I'll even meet that challenge and play one of the weird games I've got laying around.
Oh god! Look forward to next week, everybody, so you can hear me talking about fucking Overblood on PS.
And we have to beat these, by the way. You have to complete the game.
I'm not beating Overblood. Fuck.
You have to at least get as far as you possibly can, and it has to have been played for more. All right, let's say you have to play for at least 5 hours, unless the game's shorter than that.
I can do that. Deal. Right. It's on.
Right.
Next week it's on like Donkey Kong. Woo!
I think I'm gonna try to play Baroque.
Oh man, I almost bought that one time, but I didn't because I'm poor.
I've never played it, but from what I've seen, it's really cool, but fucking impossible. So we'll not as in it's too hard, as in it's just impossible to wrap your head around. So we'll see what happens next week.
Hear that, everybody? You motherfuckers, tune in to the next Horsecast with these guys, me and that guy. I'm that guy and he's this guy, and I'll see you on the next Drowning in Horseware podcast. Horse.
I'm drowning in horseshoes.